So, over the course of Wes Anderson's career, he has become well known for crafting absurdist premises and making them feel grounded and personal in various ways. The Grand Budapest Hotel is a film about a concierge and a lobby boy who take over a hotel in the middle of World War II, and somehow, in some way, that story is centered around love and friendship. Fantastic Mr. Fox film about a fox who is fantastic, who is married and has kids, and is attempting to lead a heist so that he can have a better life. With Asteroid City, Wes Anderson not only built an absurdist premise, but he also expanded on a lot of ideas and his stylistic direct. With Asteroid City, where I believe that the film sort of falls apart, is that there isn't a really connecting central narrative that I'm really able to attach myself to and go, oh, I care about this character deeply, because I don't really think you get enough time with any of them. And I think to the end, the film becomes overly pretentious, and in some aspects I don't even know what it really is about or what it's trying to say. The Phoenician Scheme, however, his new film out now in 2025, starring Mia Threapleton, Benicio del Toro and Michael Cera, among a host of others that are frequent collaborators, and for some of them were most recently seen in Asteroid City. He, in some respects, pulls back, although not entirely, and in some ways that is a detriment to this film, that I feel like he is still being somewhat expansive, but not as expansive as he was with Asteroid City. And in areas, I feel like the film either needs to be more expansive, paradoxically, or it needs to pull back even more and become an even more personal story that centers around its 3 or 4 main characters, rather than including a more ensemble cast, including the likes of Scarlett Johansson, Jeffrey Wright, Richard Ayoade, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, and so on and so forth. Now, there is nothing to say that this cast is wrong, in my opinion. It is to say that the premise that the movie sets up within the first 20 minutes is a uniquely interesting and personal story of faith and family. And where do we put our faith? Do we put our faith in God? Do we put it in our family? Do we put it in ourselves? What is it? What do we focus on? What is it that we really care about? And those 20 to 30 minutes are, in my opinion, the best part of this movie. After that first 30 minutes, the movie then expands its scope and introduces us to the ensemble cast, who I would say vary from a maybe 2-minute cameo to a 10 or 15-minute cameo. There isn't anyone in here that I go, oh, they're acting badly or anything, but it does take away from that central premise that we are introduced to in the first 30 minutes, that I would much rather have spent more time on that than in anything else. I feel as if I am proven right in saying that that first 30 minutes is the most satisfying part of this movie, and that I would prefer to focus more on that central personal story than the Phoenician Scheme, the actual Phoenician Scheme, the spy element of this film that takes up the bulk of this movie. The final 10 or 15 minutes when we are returned to that family is also uniquely satisfying in a way that I don't believe that the middle of the movie actually is. That isn't to say that the middle part of the movie is terrible. I just don't believe it is as good as the beginning and the end of it. And in some sense, there is a movie here that I would have preferred to see, and a movie that is actually a reality. And the movie that is a reality, in my opinion, just isn't as satisfying as the one that I envisioned.
Go now. Suicide panel.
Merciful Father, take this miserable sin into the company of heaven.
Starting with the premise, I will say that I do think that this is a uniquely Wes Anderson idea. I think it's absurdist, it's interesting, but it is also surprisingly personal. This idea of a guy who is one of the richest men in Europe and is constantly almost being assassinated or taken down by governments and by terrorists and that sort of thing. But despite that, and because of that, he is attempting to plant an heir or his wealthy estate that can take over that he believes in. But ultimately, as we learn, this is a cover so that he can become more of a present figure in his daughter's life and by proxy his son's life as well. Now, it is, as I said in the opener, it is a uniquely Wes Anderson thing to take a premise as absurd as this and then to make it a tale of family and friendship and love and loyalty and loss and all of those things that in many respects I don't think other directors could do. And it is a wise choice, in my opinion, to return from the expansive nature of Asteroid City that is more directly about the art of filmmaking, and in many ways I think misses the mark. It is worthwhile, in my opinion, that he has now returned to this more personal style of his films, and it is a choice that personally I believe that he should focus more on going forward, and I would prefer to see more of the Phoenician Scheme over Asteroid City, even if I'm not a big fan of the direction that the narrative actually takes. I would prefer to see more of films like The Phoenician Scheme than Asteroid City. Even though I can respect elements of Asteroid City, there isn't anything in Asteroid City that is nearly as satisfying as whatever The Phoenician Scheme does. Even the elements that I'm not particularly a fan of in that middle section of this film are more satisfying and entertaining than Asteroid City, which felt pretentious and felt in many ways like a film that I was watching and going, I don't really understand this, I don't really know what's going on here. There is in many ways a necessity for some films to not be understood and to be absurd in the way that Asteroid City is, but personally that's not what I want to see from Wes Anderson. What I want to see is personal stories that are absurd, but he makes you feel uniquely like, wow, this is absurd, but I actually understand what is going on deeply here. So yes, I really enjoy this premise, and it is a shame, in my opinion, that I don't think that the narrative and the writing actually holds up to what he sets out in the first 20 or 30 minutes. As I said in the opener, the best part about this film to me is the family dynamics that we are introduced to very early on, both between Liesl, played by Mia Threapleton, and Zaza Korda, played by Benicio del Toro. These are our two central characters alongside Michael Cera, playing a sort of tutor. This relationship between Mia Threapleton and Benicio del Toro is one that is written to a T. It is perfect, and in my opinion, I feel like where the film really falls apart in elements is when we move away from that and they are given less screen time to focus on other actors such as Jeffrey Wright, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Scarlett Johansson, Richard Ayoade. There is nothing wrong with this cast, it is just purely that I don't want to see these casts. I believe that the two central characters, along with Michael Cera, are written almost perfectly, and it's their dynamic between the duo and the trio that I would much rather have spent more time with than that ensemble. And I will get into more in the acting section of this, why I wouldn't want to see many of that cast in this film anyways, because I feel like they are a bit wasted. Nevertheless, the family dynamics, however brief, are an excellent addition to this film. I believe that this sort of tense relationship between Zaza Korda and Liesl works so well, partly because of the acting, but also because you can feel the tension in the writing that they don't really know each other and they are interested in one another, but they don't know who each other are on a personal level. Yes, Zaza Korda says he's been keeping up with what she's doing. Liesl is obviously aware of Zaza Korda because he is one of the richest men in the world, but on a personal level, they have no idea about each other. There is so much wit between the two characters, and you really feel like they are father and daughter because they have that same sort of stoic nature to themselves that Mia Threapleton and Benicio del Toro play so great. And it's just a shame to me that the two main characters don't actually get to spend basically 90 minutes on screen together. The spy narrative and the narrative that consumes the majority of this film, I wasn't actually heavily drawn into it because of that opening 20 and 30 minutes where I went, oh, I really am enjoying this is great, it's great fun. The addition of the young kids that are his sons is great. The idea of one of them being given a crossbow and then he learns to sharpen it, I think is a really funny idea. There's a lot going on in that first 20 to 30 minutes that's great, and then we are removed from that, and then we're introduced to this other narrative where he's trying to secure his fortune. And I was going, okay, well, this is interesting, but actually none of this is as interesting as that first 20 or 30 minutes. And so I didn't allow myself to get drawn in that heavily by it, because I would have preferred to see that 20 and 30 minutes just play out again and again. In some respects, I will say that I'm being slightly unfair to the narrative writ large. I don't think it's necessarily a bad one. I just also think that on top of me not being drawn into it very much in places the narrative is needlessly complex when it doesn't need to be. This should be a film that is fairly straightforward in its central narrative so that we are able to just focus on those characters themselves and them learning to love each other despite their flaws on either side. The fact that we get that 20 to 30 minutes and go, okay, we don't really know who they are, but they're interested in each other, and then we're pulled out of it, and then we're given this complex, in places, spy narrative where you're introduced to a set of characters that we don't really care about. I'm kind of like, okay, well, this just feels like a waste of those two actors and this quality writing that you introduced so early on between your two leads. It feels like a bit of a waste, in my opinion. And it's, again, not to say that I believe that the central narrative of this film is bad. It's just not as good as the one I would have enjoyed to see. I feel like I've already covered the majority of the acting, but I will just say very briefly, Benicio del Toro and Mia Threapleton play off each other great. I wasn't aware of Mia Threapleton before this. Mia Threapleton is Kate Winslet's daughter, and you can really see it coming through here of that sort of dry British humour that Kate Winslet has in a lot of things. In something like Mayor of Easttown, yes, she plays an American, but that sort of dry humour still comes through, and I really can see her being one for the future, just because Kate Winslet is a great actor. She has someone behind her that is, an excellent mentor. And on the other side, Benicio del Toro, I feel like fits perfectly into a Wes Anderson film, even though he looks like he shouldn't. Benicio del Toro looks like he should be in the action films that he has been in for the majority of his career. Crash, Sicario, films like that come natural to Benicio del Toro because of his look and his stoic nature. But that being said, the reason why he fits so greatly into this Wes Anderson feature is because of that stoic nature that just feels so natural in this. The fact that actors in a Wes Anderson film act like a machine, they are cogs in a larger picture. It works so natural for Benicio del Toro because he is stoic. He just very pointedly says things. He's not having these big dramatic scenes where he is like expanding on his heart. There's nothing like that in his style. What he is very to the point, quick, man a few words, and he is able to excel in the Wes Anderson film, because that is what Wes Anderson characters are meant to be like anyways. They are to the point, like they are reading off a script, and then they don't have to expand because it is so blunt, the dialogue that he writes for them. So them two, very good. I will say Michael Cera, I feel like, is a bit limited in this film. He's good, and he, again, feels like a very natural Wes Anderson actor. I just feel like in places he wasn't really utilised that much as he could have been, but that is also because he is the third lead, but that might just be a harsh criticism on my part. Other than that, one of my issues with the central narrative and that sort of bulk in the middle of the movie is that if Wes Anderson films are like a machine where the actors aren't expressing themselves that much and they are simply, cogs in a machine, I don't then want to see the same actors in Wes Anderson's films that I have seen in films previously. So, Benedict Cumberbatch, Jeffrey Wright, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston. I've seen all these actors in Wes Anderson films before. So I don't have any interest in watching them again, because what are they going to add that I haven't already seen in their previous films? It just feels like a bit of a waste to me. If you are going to have that ensemble cast, then at least have the sort of wherewithal to go and find other actors that can fit in your movie. If you can't do it, then don't have an ensemble cast, because it just feels wasteful. It feels like an extension of films like Asteroid City and Henry Sugar. It just feels like a bit of a waste, and it feels like that sort of bulk of the movie is wasted on actors that we've already seen do stuff before, and it ultimately just feels like a waste of my time, to be honest, because I'm going, well, I've seen you in this before. This is basically a picture-perfect copy of the role before, so I don't really know what I'm meant to be thinking you're adding in this film that I haven't already seen. So yes, bit of a waste there, but writ large, I do really like the acting in this film, and as I say, I don't think any of those actors are bad in this film. I just don't know what I'm meant to think they're adding. And then finally, I do think that Wes Anderson directs the film very well. It is clear to me that he recognized that he couldn't continue with that expansive style that he exhibits in Asteroid City. It is clear that that was basically an experiment to see, can I do this? Can I construct an entire town where every character is a character? And whilst I appreciate the effort, I don't want to see that year in, year out, or film in, film out with Wes Anderson. I want to see these uniquely personal narratives that he is able to craft based on absurdist premises. And he gets back to that in this movie, in my opinion. He doesn't get back to it to the level of a Fantastic Mr. Fox or a Grand Budapest, but it is a lot better, in my opinion, than Asteroid City. And on top of that, there are one or two times where I thought like the camera work was excellent. There is a scene in the early parts of the movie where Michael Cera is constantly in the corner of the room, and he pitches the camera beneath a table so that Michael Cera's face is blocked by the table, and Michael Cera ducks beneath the table and just like says hello in this weird like Norwegian accent. It's a moment that I can't give a lot of sort of life to now, but if you see that moment in the film, you will know what I'm talking about. It's a uniquely funny moment. It's one of the funniest moments in the film. And in my opinion, like every other funny moment in this film, it comes up pretty much at the start. And I don't believe that the bulk of the film is actually that funny. I feel like it sort of loses its luster a bit. Writ large, I do like this film. I just think it gets bogged down in its narrative, and it should have returned even more to this small scale narrative of just the family. I understand that an ensemble cast is very much a Wes Anderson thing. I'm not going to, hate on him for that. If you're going to go for the ensemble cast, I would at least appreciate having a new cast, because I don't think what we're seeing here is really worth it. What is Tom Hanks adding to his Wes Anderson repertoire? It doesn't make sense, in my opinion. I really, really recommend this movie. I think it's really a good time. Can I really place this in the same sort of stratosphere as a Grand Budapest Hotel? Not a chance. It's not to that level, but it is a return to form in many aspects that I don't feel like Asteroid City was really hitting. So that's the end of this review. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, comment, like, subscribe. Thank you.